Gerraint, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. Do you want to start off just by introducing yourself and your background in the sector?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. Well, I'm Gerraint Oakley. I'm Exec Director of Development at Platform Housing Group. I've been there coming up to 5 years, and I've been in the sector since 2011. Prior to that, I was in private house building. But I'm also on the board of Ongo in the northeast of our patch. So I'm the chair of the development committee. And obviously, we operate from the M4 up to Derbyshire and from the Welsh borders out to the East Coast, the whole middle band of England.
Okay, bro. So you guys went through a merger quite a few years ago now, and now's about 5 years. It's passed since then. How's it all been so far, and has there been any surprises along the way?
There's always surprises, always surprises. I think it started obviously before I joined. I joined not long after, and obviously it was still going through that melding process of standardization and forming, storming, norming and performing, and I don't think that ever really stops. I think probably from people who hadn't been through it before, it was the time it takes. It's about finding that stability and unifying the processes, particularly if I look at it from a development perspective. You had two organizations that had different methodology for developing. One that was maybe more Section 106, another one that did a little bit of land-led and package deals. And subsequently, and there's a lot going on in that as well. You start making these plans and you're perpetually changing because, the SME world has changed dramatically. A lot of our work subsequently came from package deals with SMEs. And they've pretty much been decimated over that 5-year period, if I'm honest. And we obviously, when I came in, we set out to move that one function to focus on the land-led strategy, moving more and more to buying our own land, so we have more control. And coming away from that process, getting the team to move away from well-established practices, because at the scale we're at, you need a unified approach. I think that's a big thing. So I'd probably say that I think the surprise, particularly with whatever seniority you are, it's how long it takes. The due diligence takes a long time up front. But once you start getting that process and trying to get people away from stuff they've done for a long time, but probably doesn't fit with a new organization and a very ambitious growth plan. And we are still one of the very much focused on social delivery, social housing, social rent, affordable rent. And we've kept to that, and it's paid us dividends, to be honest with you.
Well, do you think it helped that you were a big organization? Do you think it's or a smaller one?
There's always an interesting debate about it. I think the key is we're a big organisation, but we think locally. Everything we do, we operate in that way. There's benefits from both, but we've got the scalability, we've got levers that we can pull. We can adapt more in a more agile way because we got the scale, and we operate in such a big area. We operate in 101 local authority areas, which and I know there are other housing associations that have the same things. We operate in very dense city centres, urban, suburban areas, which means we have to have a very adaptable, flexible, and agile way of working. But at our scale, that has benefits without a doubt. And the scalability allows us to look at things like and work with Homes England, across the whole patch. Although we do large sites at 300 homes plus, we still do rural infills. We still meet those challenges because they do take up a lot of time. No, it doesn't matter how big it is. You still got to get through planning, and planning is a challenge whether you're doing 20 or 200. So it allows us to do a great deal more, I think. And focus on broader communities and utilise that to make communities stronger across the whole patch.
Brilliant. And on our last episode, we had Phil Pemberton from Riverside. So they're going through a merger still at the moment. That's a couple of years old. What would, now you're further down the road than them, anything you kind of advise them to look out for?
Pretty much what I just
quite
said.
Broad anyway, isn't it?
And the other thing is I think everyone is different, and it's the unknown unknowns that will catch you on the hop. You can plan it all out, and I think that's the point I was trying to make. Is in the time we've done this, we had COVID.
Good time.
Almost, very soon after the merger, we got hit by COVID. So all the best laid plans then were put on hold. So you've got to adapt to that. You've got to be agile. I think that's the other thing is you can have the plan in place. There's a military saying, all the best plans fall apart when you meet the enemy. First contact with the enemy. I think the problem is that change comes down the line and you have a plan and you have to adapt to it. You have to be flexible. And all mergers take a lot of time. It takes a lot of people away from BAU. because all the organisations that are in these situations, they don't have spare capacity to be focusing on that. But they have to do BAU, look after the customer, whilst integrating all those services, the IT, the cultural shift as well, making sure that cultural alignment is there.
Yeah,
there's nobody sat there
it's a whole piece
waiting
in
for this.
itself, isn't it? Trying to get it done.
It's a huge amount of time and commitment, and you've got to be able to continue to do the core business. And our core business is challenging on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I think it's that, and giving people and making sure your colleagues are coping with that on a day-to-day basis, which platforms try to achieve throughout the process.
And now you're there. Yeah, very much.
Nearly. 5 years on, I've got to say, absolutely there.
Yeah, good. And mergers are happening a lot around the industry at the moment. And from a development point of view, how do you think mergers can assist with housing associations' development programs? Do you see it as a good thing?
Well, personally, as a development side of the organisation, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, and we've said a number of times, it is a really challenge, probably the most challenging period I've had in house building.
Okay.
Going back to 2007, 2008 in the financial crash.
Yeah.
This has so many elements to it that are all happening at the same time. And I think that what you're seeing is some HAs are having to choose between maintaining and making the best they can from their existing stock, protecting their customers, making homes safe, healthy and warm. And that is a big challenge in itself. And then you've got the development ambitions, and I'm sure we'll come to it, of the government's ambitions and your own ambitions to grow, because you need to build and you need to grow, and they're having to choose between the two. So you're talking about, I think HAs have a social and moral obligation to attack the housing crisis and try and deliver more homes.
Yeah.
But I've also understand that we have to look after our existing customers and make sure their homes are safe and well looked after. And when it comes to that decision for a small housing association that is looking for a partner, it's how you can keep doing that. And I think that's the key, your new customers and making sure you are adapting to it and building those homes. And I think that extra capacity, how you can actually use your resources to continue to do both. Because I don't think it's one or the other. I think the best we can do is to do both.
Yeah, and I think that's always kind of like a battleground in a lot of other HAs. Do we commit to the maintaining of stuff, or do we keep building more? Do you find across your peers in the industry as well, it's quite a bit of a struggle trying to find that balance, or some will just stop development altogether because of all the new asset stuff that's come in?
And you can't underestimate the asset stretch and the challenges and building safety and all the stuff we should be doing. And all of my colleagues in platform and across the sector, they've got some big challenges to overcome, and it's not going to stop. So I think that decision, and as you've seen, some of the biggest challenges in some of the biggest developing housing associations have had to make tough choices, and those tough choices are building safety, customer safety, making sure their homes are being refurbed and decarbonised and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's that balancing act. I think that is the key. Our sector delivers affordable housing, multi-tenure. It's not just about shareholder return. And I think that's the key. I think if you want to unlock the solutions to the housing crisis, you've got to talk to housing associations, the big developing housing associations, and give them a surety of policy. Know what the grant's going to be coming out of the next phase. The next strategic partnership, phase 3, is going to be absolutely critical for us to continue with our development programs and our pipelines.
Okay.
So all of that tied together, without a doubt. And you are seeing housing associations make those decisions. Yeah. And rightly so. They know their organisation. They have to make those calls.
You said you were private sector beforehand.
Yes.
So what's the main difference, and what do you find kind of easier to get stuff over the line?
Well, I'm ex-private sector, you say, volume house building. It is a manufacturing process for them, and they've got shareholders at the end of the day that want to see the return. They've got set margins they've got to achieve. And they are, and a lot of our pensions are tied up with these big organisations that build thousands of houses that are absolutely key. But I think part of my frustration is that a lot of the time you see some of the solutions being muted about building more market sale. That's not the solution. It's about multi-tenure and building really sustainable communities with that multi-tenure offer, but affordability being at the top of that. And I think that working in partnership with those organisations allows us to do a lot more, getting a residual land value that works for both sides, and then working truly in partnership where we're both sharing the pain and the gain. That's the future, I think, and I think
Okay.
I'd like to see more of that.
Mm.
But the difference, it is, well, social conscious, moral compass.
Yeah.
What we do in our sector is because we enjoy what we do. There's a great deal of satisfaction that you're doing great things. At one end of the scale, getting youngsters off the street and teaching them life skills, providing homes for some of the most needy in society, and building homes on huge schemes that are building all those tenures and getting involved with infrastructure and planning and strategic growth. It's a great place to be. But it is a challenging place to be.
I can imagine. I think the first part is answers some of my next question. I was going to ask, how do you think we can all work together as a sector to improve building programs? So you've mentioned then about joining with the private developers. Anything else you think we can do to kind of improve the programs?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see more collaboration across housing associations.
Okay.
Ironically, every time you hear about a great partnership, it seems to be between a HA and a private sector partner. And that's great. And we do it. We work with partner organisations to try and unlock those opportunities. I'd like to see more of us talking as a sector about how we can get together and look at those big strategic sites. And I think that, once we can get some stabilisation in the sector, I think that would be a great way forward.
And what would that look like? Would you find a piece of land and split it 50-50, or how would that work?
However that works, I think. I think the key is we've got to understand what we want out of it and what they want out of it.
Okay.
It could be 30-70, it could be 50-50, 60-40, whatever. But that's not the main bit. It's got to fit with us. It's got to be the right place, the right location, that we understand the long-term management of the community and who's going to do what. And I think that's a big part of it. But when we're working with the private sector, I want a clarity about we are equal partners. Quite often we move in, we want to buy the land, we want to have as much control over that land as possible. Because over time we will be perpetually looking after that estate and that community and everything else. So it's really important to us that placemaking is right, that we understand the quality of the homes we build, and of course the quality is absolutely key. The quality in the design, the external space. And make sure that we are limiting that exposure to our asset colleagues that have got to maintain the homes once they're finished. So the whole life cycle, we think about the whole life cycle, and I think that's another thing coming back to the private sector. They'll build an estate, they'll sell the properties, and then they move on to the next one, rightly so. Whereas we build it and we maintain it in perpetuity. So we have a different angle on what we want to establish out of that community. So I think that's an important one. And when the private sector really understands that. I think that's the key.
Do you think it's helped you've come from that side as well?
I think it's I think understanding what drives both sides helps understand what we can talk about. And we work very well with our partners. A lot of the opportunities we've got is because we approach it in partnership. And they've got skills and we've got skills, and when they bring them together, a lot of it is about working with the local authorities, working with Homes England. You've got a lot of stakeholders involved with the process, and understanding people's timelines, because
all different.
I want to get that done by the end of our financial year, but does it tie in with our financial year? So there's a lot of complexities around the governance and the timeframes, and as long as you get very clear about that, I think that will ease the process as much as you can.
And have you found with a lot of your new build programs, because of net zero and sustainability is a big thing at the moment, has that changed a lot of how you build your homes to accommodate that and your budgets as well?
Well, we build gas free, which is another interesting one, because obviously there's a fair bit of ambiguity about that at the moment. We've got an ambition to decarbonise as much as we can. We want to make our homes as carbon free as possible, make sure they're sustainable, that our customers can live in them easily as well. That's another part of it. The more complex the heating systems are, the harder it is to just move in and move on. And I think that's a big part of it. But we've got a platform standard. We understand what technical impacts on our new homes will be. We're looking at new adaptations and innovation. And I think that's another thing people underestimate is the amount of innovation that HAs are looking at, from AI and systems that
from the outside looking in, they probably wouldn't think it would.
Exactly. But
it's happening.
We're focused on stuff, to make that journey better, to improve the houses we're building, to make it cheaper to live in. And that's a big key when you've got so much fuel poverty in the winter. To be able to live in a home that is relatively less to live in than the previous ones and less carbon demanding, I think that's going to be something that people forget that HAs really do focus on.
Brilliant. So the Labour government they've set a nice target of 1.5 million homes in 5 years. What are your plans? Changed anything in terms of how you're going to tackle it and how you guys are going to go about it?
It's a big number. It's a big number.
Yeah.
And I think I've been quite clear that I think that's, it's great to have an ambition. I really enjoy the fact that, you come out and said, this is what we want to do. I think the practicalities of delivering that in 5 years are
Tough.
Huge. The planning system, the skill shortages, all the other stuff that goes with it. How are we eating an elephant one bit at a time, to be honest?
Yeah.
You've got to start somewhere.
I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah, if you're going to eat an elephant, how do you do it? One bite at a time.
Yeah. Right.
We're on target to do 1,600 starts on site this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's a great place to be. We've just got to keep going at what we can do. And I think we've got a huge challenge to get even close to that.
Okay.
And I think if you wanted to get to that within 5 years, you'd have to start a run up about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And have fixed the planning system and have fixed the skill shortage and understand the demands that are on the supply chain. Because even if you look at MMC, which I still think is a really viable solution in the long term, the trouble is it's getting that pipeline for the manufacturing process to ensure it happens.
Okay.
And I think we're a long way behind, particularly Northern Europe, who've been doing it for decades and decades and make it work. And I think that we need a unified approach to that supply chain. So, I'd love to be able to build 1.5 million homes in 5 years.
And has the plan been set out from the government, right, we need X amount here, X amount there, or has everyone got to put their numbers in and see if they can get close to that number?
I think that's part of the challenge, is the joined up approach to it. Because if you see the challenges that local authorities are under that are, cash strapped, and some of them, are bankrupt or equivalent, they have challenges. Their strategic planning need and housing need is difficult for them to establish in the time that they've got to do it.
Yeah.
And if I'm trying to be diplomatic here, that
of course.
if you read in the press that there's a lot of local authorities that are saying this is just not practical.
Yeah,
we can't do that. There's no way we can do it. And you saw this week that the Chancellor said that they're going to speed up and fast track, excuse the pun, fast track housing around railway links for commuter reasons.
Nice. Okay.
That wasn't deliberate.
Okay.
So I think, and you hear that again, but it seems to be aimed at private sector development rather than getting the tenures right, because as much as I just mentioned fuel poverty, you've got commuter poverty. People in some estates can't afford to go in and out of work and pay the parking or run a car. And all those things, you've got to factor in to make a truly sustainable community. And if you're building it close to commuter links, great.
Yeah.
However, what is the mix and how close is it going to be, and how involved are social housing providers going to be in that process to make sure it's right? So again, it's all about that whole image. It's not just about
so much
build
more
houses. It's all about, it's like infrastructure, it's trains, it's active travel. A lot of the things that tend to get missed in the rush to get the buildings up.
Yeah, like you said, if you're servicing them properties forever afterwards, housing officers, trade, it's got to be commutable within reason as well.
Exactly. I think that's part of the problem, is that a new development that works for private sale, where a lot of them have 2 cars per household, probably, and it's a bit remote from education, healthcare, and employment. It's a challenge. So you have to know what is going to be right for the customers that are going to be buying or moving into rental homes in that area. Is it sustainable? Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have to be very quick about working out where those and the new towns, that's the next one, where those new towns will be, how they can be serviced. Infrastructure comes at a pretty substantial cost and a lot of time to get it in place.
Of course, and brownfield sites have been mentioned, about more buildings on them.
Brownfield, greenfield and greyfield, yes. All of those have been mentioned quite well. Well, we do a lot of stuff on brownfield and secondary and tertiary land market. But that solution about the green belt, there's a big argument the green belt contributes to commuter poverty, because people have to move outside the employment areas and then commute in and out on a daily basis. So daisy chaining literally outside the major towns and cities. And I think there's a fundamental review needed. And a lot of it is that people's interpretation of the green belt is it's green field. Yeah. It's not always green field. And I think there needs to be a much more clear and with great clarity explained to people that this is what it looks like, this is what it actually means. And I know we should be protective of our very important green infrastructure around our towns and cities and in the towns and cities.
Yeah.
But it's about getting the right mix.
It's the balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I know there's a lot of hurdles and a lot of challenges at the moment within the sector. What do you see is the biggest one we're facing right now, or that you can see coming up?
One.
Yeah. So from our point of view, so the talent shortage is always a biggie. I don't know how you find it with delivering on the site, and you mentioned as well 1.5 million homes. Have we got the capacity for the right skilled labour and people to do it? So is that something that you've kind of found, or is there something else that you see as one of the biggest hurdles right now?
First of all, I wouldn't want to prioritise anything, because I think some of the biggest challenges are so critical on their own. They don't stand aside. And I've said for a long time that the skills shortage, and it's trades and labour on site, a shocking number of skilled labour over the age of 55 on site.
Okay.
It's quite a daunting figure. And I think it's not just skilled labour on site, it's planners, quantities of it is.
Yeah.
Anybody and there's a lot of roles out there that are, the challenge to fill, particularly in a patch as big as ours.
Yeah.
It can be challenging to get people like plumbers for the, our PPC colleagues to fill those roles. So I think that is a massive problem, and I think that is not going to be fixed overnight, which comes back to that 5-year plan.
Yeah.
I think getting youngsters excited about it and the careers that are on offer. And I think we've got to be realistic. If you're building on site, you stood for 6 months of the year, potentially in the rain and the snow and the cold and the mud, which is why I think MMC is also another attractive solution, because you're building in a factory. It's generally warmer, it's generally safer, you've got access to other facilities. But I think there's both. We're always going to be building traditionally for as long as I can see it. But I think there's a real place for mixing that up. But planning, absolutely, it's got to be fixed. We finished a site a couple of years ago that took 14 years. 14 years for
14
for less than 50 homes. Yes.
Why?
It was.
What was going on?
Yeah, well, there's a number of stakeholders that made it quite challenging, because you can be building in an area of where you've got a national park. You can have a planning system that's quite challenging anyway, and there's not only that's not the only 14-year from buying the land to finishing it that I know of, and
it happens quite a lot in the industry.
I wouldn't say a lot, but it does happen.
Yeah, right, okay.
The land assembly, all that can take place over a long period of time. And of course, opposition. Opposition can be a fundamental problem. And we hear a lot about NIMBYism, and that in itself is a challenge, because a lot of the decision making at local authority for development committees are local people who are councillors, who are influenced heavily by their local community. And that's democracy. Yeah. However, how you look at that, it can be an incredibly challenging process. But if you imagine it could take 3, 4, 5 years to get a planning consent on a site for 30 homes that's being developed by an SME that may have spent a few £1 million in getting that opportunity, to not see a return on their capital for 3, 4, 5 years, it just makes the barrier to getting into being a house builder unbelievably difficult. So that planning process doesn't just cause an issue about resourcing and getting to site, it actually stops people coming into the sector. Okay. And I think that's another part of it. But yes, skills definitely up there, planning definitely up there, supply chain, materials. There's a lot going on in the world that is impacting that. Yeah. And the uncertainty, interest rates, cost of living. Yeah. I could.
Why do you do it? Why do you do it? Yeah.
It's fun.
It sounds brilliant. You mentioned about planning then earlier, about the government's plan to fast track planning. What does that look like specifically? Well, what are they doing?
Again, it's about what does that really mean? Because they're talking about fast tracking around railway stations this week. They're talking about fast tracking generally for the new towns, and a lot of that. I think it's about that clarity. The only thing you want as a developer is a bit of a surety about how long it is going to take. And what it actually means. And I think a lot of it's coming out in drips and drops, and in the press.
You've got to pick it up here.
It'd be really great if we could, get some absolutely clear. This is going to be the rule. This is how we're going to do it. Yeah. But until you understand how local authorities understand their housing need, can help deliver it and resource it, all these things sound great. But it's about how we deliver it. And I think that part of consultation about what does it really mean. If we could guarantee a planning consent in 2 years, you can factor that into your program.
Yeah.
You know, once you get slippage and all those things that I said that cause the problems, that's where you lose a surety and your long-term financial plan starts slipping. And that is a problem for HAs.
Yeah.
You know, you're factoring, you know, you're going to build that home and either sell it for shared ownership or you're going to get renting on that day. And your customers are anticipating moving on that day. When things start slipping and sliding because of all those challenges, it's frustrating for the customer. It's difficult for housing associations to finance it.
Yeah.
So just need a surety.
Yeah, sure. Are the government putting any grants or funding forward to help with the cost of all of this?
Well, we're obviously part of the Strategic Partnership 3, hopefully 3. We were 2. We're waiting for 3 to come out, which is probably the part of it. And obviously when that comes out, we want to be part of that with Homes England because that enabled us to do more. And that's absolutely key. A surety of grant in the long term would be great.
Yeah.
Rather than a 5-year cycle, it would be great to have an extension on that if I had a wish list.
If it lasts 14 years, then
if we had a longer program. And I think that's part of the point is that being apolitical, you need more than 5 years to fix the housing crisis. It's not going to be fixed in 5 years.
No, of course not.
Even if you build a 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So if you had a 2-term government that had a much longer time to get those policies in place and get those processes in place, and you can see 5-6 years out, you've got the pipeline and the figures are going up. That's where it is. But I think the ambition in a 5-year program is going to be really difficult. Particularly, as I said, if you talk about skills shortages, you know, training planners doesn't happen overnight. Training bricklayers doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. No.
So, you know, if you want to see an uptick in the number of skilled people out there, it's going to be a couple of years down the line to make a difference. So, but the intent is good.
It's good to have intent.
It's good to have
intent. Shall we get on? So speaking about careers and getting people into the sector, what do you think makes a job in housing so rewarding? So you've mentioned a lot of challenges there. But there is a lot of fulfillment that people do this side for, like you mentioned at the start as well. So how can we get more people in? What do you think makes it so good?
I think there's a huge number of reasons why you want to. You know, just the fact that you know you're doing good is a really big part of it. And I think you meet people in this sector that do it because they know they're making a difference, a positive difference, whether it's people supporting people in their homes, helping them provide the services and care and whatever they need to maintaining the properties and knowing you're making a real difference. And I think the other point is that there's a diversity of roles in the sector. When you talk to people about everything in the housing association that you can do, from finance teams to housing operations teams to maintenance to plumbing to you know,
so varied, isn't it?
It's so varied, and none of us are the same. You know, there's a lot of housing associations out there, and I think there's an assumption that we're all the same. We all provide slightly different things, and we do it in a slightly different way. But once you get into the sector, you realise the breadth of roles that are available and the support. You know, as a housing association, providing our colleagues with training and the opportunity to succession plan your career is fantastic. And like I said, I think the moral compass bit, you know, everything you do every week is making people's lives better.
Helping and going towards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and like I say, it's not just about that. It's providing warm, safe homes that you already, you're retrofitting, you're improving the carbon journey and all the rest of it, to trying to tackle a housing crisis, which is more than a crisis. It's been going on too long to be just a crisis. But I think that's the diversity of it and the fun. I mean, you know, it is a great place to work. You know, I thoroughly enjoy what I do. I hope my team do.
I'll ask them afterwards.
Probably be texting me now.
I think we find that as well a good thing. All the organisations, the first thing they do when they go to grow is look from within. Who can we promote from within first? Who can we upskill? What training can we put you through? And I think qualifications are such a big thing now. A lot of organisations are supporting their employees through that to get them in and keep them. Are you guys doing the same thing?
Absolutely. You know, we've got we're very keen on succession planning. Not least you build a robust organisation. As long as you haven't got single points of failure, you want to have a solid team that are looking to progress and then people who actually really are happy doing what they're doing and keep doing that job well. But, you know, knowing where your future stars are and helping them develop and giving them opportunities to explore other roles and look at how things are done elsewhere is really important. And shadowing, and you know, we do a lot of shadowing in the organisation. You know, going out and seeing what
practical
Going
it's a good way to
out,
do it, isn't it? Yeah.
listening on the contact centre, going out with the trades, to see what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. It really helps you understand the breadth of stuff that goes on in an organisation as big as Platform.
Yeah, brilliant. I know the breadth of roles is so big, but for someone considering a career coming into the sector within housing, what skills or qualities do you think would be essential if we keep it within development, because that's what we're talking about? Anything in particular?
Sense of humour. No.
Okay. It helps, doesn't it? It always helps. Yeah.
I think that agility and resilience, because no one scheme is the same. Yeah. And that's what another thing about development makes it so exciting.
Make that interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
really interesting.
No sites are the same.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
But it's that sense of accomplishment, taking a parcel of land and then end up with a community that's integrated, and you literally can see that as part of what we do. We see the customers move in. We see the fantastic reactions you get when they move into their first home. That's a fantastic feeling. That's got to be one of the best. When you see somebody get the key to their first home, or they've come out of a very challenging environment and they've got a safe home to walk into, that's got to be one of the most definitely one of the most rewarding things you can do in a development function in an HA. But it's the versatility of the roles. You can be working on a city centre role one day, you can be working in a field in the middle of nowhere the next day. And of course, the other thing is the integration, because we work with our housing colleagues, we work with our maintenance colleagues to make sure it's all joined up.
Yeah.
Because we don't go off and design them ourselves and just hand them over. Despite what they think. We do work in unison to design what we want and to make sure they're fit for long term for our customers.
Yeah, and I think within development as well, like you said, it'd be so much more varied than any other role within housing, you could say.
Yeah, well,
just because of the different sites and the developers you're dealing with each time, and land's got complete different problems that can arise with it as well. So
absolutely, and the stakeholders you work with, they're different all the time. Like I said, the varied local authorities we work with, Homes England. Government bodies and everybody else that's got a stakeholder position, and that makes it exciting. And you've got planners, you've got surveyors, you've got architects in the team, you've got technical specialists, and you learn from them as well, which is great. So anybody coming into the sector, I just say it's just in development, it's just exciting. And you see a lot of people moving into development from housing ops or from other parts of the organisation, and they also move out into the organisation.
They do a bit of both. Try both sides.
Our chief operating officer, Marion, actually started in development.
Oh, really?
And so
good job on side then.
Yeah, she's always on my side.
Yeah. And lastly, the sector can have its personas in a way. So what's a myth that you'd like to bust about working in the sector? Because I don't think a lot of people realise how impactful the sector can be. Is there anything that you've found in your...
There's a few, I think, I'd say.
Okay.
When I left the private volume house building sector, my MD colleagues said that I'd be bored.
Okay.
I can guarantee you can be perplexed, confused, and absolutely baffled, but you're never going to be bored in housing, because there's always something happening.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is it's regarded as bureaucratic and slow. And I would say that our decision making in development particularly is very, very quick, it's focused, it's set out, it's deliberate. We know what we want to do, we know the timescales we want to do it in. And when people work with us, they know if we say we're going to do something,
it's happening.
We'll make it happen. So I think that's two myths. It's definitely not boring.
Yeah.
And we do make things happen. Which is, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
No problem.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.